It's the day after the election. No winner declared yet. A ballot counting battle is now underway. Trump takes some key states in the first night. Biden in the days after, hoping to make up a few more. And the Senate looks good for the GOP. Welcome, friends, to the Buck Sexton Show. Look, I thought we'd be here. Give the Buckster a little bit of credit. I told you it'd be a very tight election. I also told you Trump would win, which we can't yet say is the case as I go to air. But I told you it was going to be very, very tight, and here we are. It's exactly the dogfight, the trench warfare that I knew was going to be coming up. And then that makes me just sit here and think to myself, my, oh my, friends, what a time to be alive. So what are the big immediate takeaways from what we've seen? What do we already, I want to start with what we know, and then over the course of the show, we'll be discussing more of the specifics, what remains to be seen, and where this is all heading. I will tell you, I'm still confident in a Trump win. But remember what I said the day of the election on this show. I said that no matter what, the Trump movement will continue on. Here's the part of this that is already really upsetting the libs. Here's the part of this that is already really bothering the left. They aren't going to be able to say with any seriousness. I mean, nobody would take them seriously if they claim that Donald Trump's version of Republican politics, that Donald Trump as the leader of the GOP is over or has been repudiated, not even a little bit. Not even close. That we are in a pandemic year, a once-in-a-century pandemic. And it's as close an election as it is under those circumstances. To me, shows you that Donald Trump has far more to do in terms of the movement, whether he ends up with 4 more years or not. There's going to be a whole shift in the Republican Party that has been occurring for 4 years, but now I think in a sense it's solidified that the Trump coalition of the future on the right of a populist conservatism is here to stay. It also is a repudiation of the elite consensus that Donald Trump was going to just get destroyed, especially in certain communities, that Donald Trump was going to be run out of D.C. immediately the first chance the American people got. No, not at all. In fact, we know that Trump has won Ohio, that he has won Florida, that he has kept on the Republican side basically all of the major red states. I know there's Arizona out there too, but all of the major large red states that he was expected to win, and has already taken victory in some critical battleground states. The big story that immediately became clear on election night was how much the pollsters were just catastrophically wrong. I mean, not wrong by a little bit, wrong by a lot. You got Ohio up 7. You got Wisconsin up 6. You got Iowa up 6 for Trump. Those are all the averages of polls in the from Real Clear Politics. So what I mean here is that when you averaged out all the polls for Ohio on Real Clear Politics, and that's, I think, a very useful snapshot. It's effectively almost like a poll of polls, an average of polls, right? You're seeing what the data is telling you in the aggregate. Trump beat that average of polls by 7 points in Ohio. That's massive, right? If I told you that you had to make a prediction off the top of your head about what the final percentage vote count would be in Florida, and I said, but you need to be within 7 points, the chance of you getting it right is very high. And that's another way of saying, what the heck do pollsters know that any of us didn't just know intuitively? In fact, they're more wrong than many of us would have been by just thinking about what we know registration-wise in these states and what the political momentum is telling us. Unbelievable. Trump up 4.5 in Florida, according to the Real Clear Politics average, up 5 points in Texas. This is the polling community is just like the journalism community, friends. That's what we saw. And I was telling you, I've been saying this publicly for a while. This is a really serious problem because polling is used not only to give you a snapshot of perception, but to drive perception. It's meant to tell people what other people think, and that has the attendant causation of making people want to agree with what the consensus position is, right? If you find that 80% of people favor common sense restrictions on gun control, for example, well, that number gets out there and people start to say, well, I want to be part of the 80% that favors it, right? And in an election, it couldn't be any more clear. If you hear that in your home state, Biden's up 8 points, 12 points, 17 points, they were saying last week in Wisconsin. It was laughable. Trump outperformed the average of polls in Wisconsin on election night by at least 6. And we'll see what the final tally is. But are you going to wait in line for an hour? Are you even going to think about showing up for the election? You're going to lose by almost 20 points. And look, I voted in New York, so New York was never going to be a place that Trump managed to flip. But I can understand how that would affect people's perception. So pollsters now join journalists and fact checkers as professions that have been tainted by bias and that no person should just take at face value anymore, right? Fact checkers, and people say, oh, Buck, you don't believe in facts? No, what I'm saying is what's obvious, that these fact-checking organizations that pop up are really just journalists who then they put on their fact checker hat and they do these laughable things where it's, mostly true. Yes, what Trump said is absolutely factually accurate, but Orange Man bad. So we're going to give it a mostly true rating instead of just true. And they obviously skew things on the other side as well. But the absence of a repudiation of Trumpism is a major story of the election already without even knowing the final outcome. That's big. Because the way the media had gone all out to destroy Trump in this election cycle. I was walking on the streets of Manhattan yesterday. There was a truck that drove by me with billboards flat out saying, with very, with photos chosen of Jared and Ivanka, meant to make them seem like the most out of touch, elitist, snobbiest, inhuman, really, because they were saying that it's New York's problem that a lot of people have died of COVID. It was like the COVID death number and Ivanka smiling and looking at, it's horrible, evil propaganda, just wrong. They did everything they could to make this an absolute walloping of Trump. They tried every trick in the book. The polls were meant to suppress the Republican vote. That much is obvious at this point. And to create a perception of Biden as the inevitable candidate, just like they tried to create a perception of Hillary as an inevitable candidate. It's not possible to explain all of the skewed polls in favor of Joe Biden without any polls that seem really to favor Donald Trump to a similar degree. Arizona, maybe 2 parts. That's 2 points. That's margin of error stuff, right? If you're within a point or two, fine. 8 points, 10 points. This is crazy. Nowhere was Donald Trump overestimated in the same way that Joe Biden's support was overestimated, and it was systematic and it was clear. So that's a big takeaway. Another big takeaway. Looks like Donald Trump, based on the exit polling I've seen so far, may have dramatically outperformed usual GOP expectations with the African-American community and with the Latino community. And first things first, I just want to say, for those from both those communities who voted for Trump, I just want to say welcome. Great to have you on the Trump team. Honored to be shoulder to shoulder with you against the crazy libs. And as for what this does to the narrative, one of the primary objections we hear against Donald Trump, the two I think you can point to the most in this election cycle, one of them would be that Donald Trump mishandled COVID so badly that he's essentially responsible for all of the COVID deaths out there, right? For all of the COVID deaths, which is just outrageous. I mean, that's an intellectually and morally unsupportable claim. But then on the other side, you have, alongside that, I should say, you also have Donald Trump as this evil racist, right? So on COVID, it seems like a lot of people were thinking, who will do a better job with the economy in 2021, and not believing this anti-Trump line about how he's responsible for all the COVID deaths. On the minority vote side, Trump is an evil racist, is what we are told all the time. They lie about what he said in Charlottesville. They lie about what he said about illegal immigrants crossing the border and MS-13, and they lie about these things. But it's been very effective. It's created a broad perception, and it's tough to blame people when they think they're supposed to be able to rely on the media, and the media says Trump said a certain thing about Charlottesville that he did not say, and they believe it. And I understand how that can be a challenge for a lot of folks. They don't want to live their lives sifting through the lies of the mainstream media. But here's what we see. Not only did Trump manage no matter what happens at this point, it was a strong showing for the president in key places in an election that is completely undermined by the COVID pandemic this year in so many ways. But that he outperformed expectations, not just of what he would do, but of what the GOP normally does with the African American community. There's something here. That he outperformed with the Latino community as well. There's something going on right now. And just the same way that the media missed Trump's rise and his win in 2016, they're missing a shift that's occurring on the right that is incorporating these new minority voters into an expanding GOP tent that could be really the future of the Republican Party. A republicanism that is rooted in a sort of traditional Christian, Christian, Judeo-Christian values base, and adding into that, and I know that a lot of people in the Black and Hispanic community would also fall in that category, but then adding into that a multiracial working class coalition within the GOP, aspiring Latino business owners, skilled African American laborers, who are working a job and realize that, they're going to get ahead more with less regulation, less taxation, that socialism is not going to make their lives better. This is just the beginning of this. This is just the crack in the dam, in a sense, of what could be coming. And also maybe the dam holds, right? But this would be a game changer from within the GOP if this trend can be expanded upon. And it is a nightmare for Democrats. Without identity politics and without being able to count on over 90% of black voters consistently going for Democrats, they got big problems. They've got very big problems. And the more people that come to the recognition that the Democrat Party and certainly the left-wing national media caters to the cultural and political interests of Brooklyn hipsters with, jobs in some field that who knows how long it's even really going to be around or be steady employment for them, the more people realize that that's at the heart and at the center, right, the college-educated white liberal voter of what so much of the Democrat Party is actually doing, and that minorities are in many ways an afterthought that the Democrat Party has taken for granted. The more of that can happen, the better for the GOP, right? The more that perception changes, the better off the GOP will be. And I think it's a very good thing. So Democrats are worried about that, and they should be. But now we have to think about this trench warfare that's underway as we speak. What did we hear on the first night of this election battle, which it should be over, right? It's election night, but it's really just the first one. What do we hear about it, and what are the concerns, and how is this fight going to play out now? I recently got a crash course in home title theft. You better pray this crime never happens to you. Here's how it works. The bad guys find your home's title online. It's up there in the cloud. It's stored on servers. Then they use a quitclaim deed to kick you off, put themselves on your home's title, and then they take out loans against the value in your home, the equity you've built up. You often won't find out about this until you get payment demands in the mail or perhaps a foreclosure notice. You need to take action today to create a virtual barrier around your home's title with Home Title Lock. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, use the promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. You can also check online to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. The usual identity theft services do not protect you, so take action today with HomeTitleLock.com. Use that promo code RADIO, 30 free days of protection for your most valuable asset.
Is the polling industry dead?
You know, I really hope so. And I could name some of the people who should be fired immediately. And I think I will. I just need to calm down enough to get their names on paper. But clearly, look, the instinct of this is true in every industry because this is a function of human nature. But you cover for yourself and you think of an excuse, your children do it. Well, there's a good reason I did. Okay. No, you screwed up and you have to acknowledge it in order to get better. But we in the media, I think, are particularly good at pretending that there's some reason that we misled our viewers or our readers. And we really should stop doing that because too much is at stake. And the first way to fix it is by holding the people who screwed up accountable. And that's just by firing them. And they can go do something useful like hang drywall or learn to paint or do something else. But they cannot keep discrediting the work of the rest of us by screwing up in the way that they have. I think that's a fair ask.
Maybe they should learn to code. Remember that? You could be banned from Twitter for saying learn to code to journalists on the left who lost their jobs during a period of media downsizing. Can't say learn to code. It was triggering. That was a real thing. Not allowed to say that. After all, the journalists go around telling a lot of particularly white working class voters in the industrial Midwest that that's really what they should do. You're going to lose your job because of a ban on fracking from crazy green libs? Too bad. Go learn to code, right? I think some pollsters are going to have to learn to do something other than polling. We might not find out the final results in these battleground states, the official final results, until Friday. That's what I'm being told today. And it could go much longer than that because this could result in legal challenges. The die were cast here early on when you had the Supreme Court at 4-4, of course, thanks, John Roberts, the Supreme Court at 4-4 reverting to a lower court decision in Pennsylvania, which is a bunch of lib judges and a bunch of Democrat-controlled state government, where those judges decided that you could have ballots that arrive after Election Day and don't even have a clear postmark to be counted in the state of Pennsylvania. How does anyone designate what that means? Clear postmark is going to be turned very quickly into, well, there's not really a postmark. And think about how open that is, how rife that could be with fraud, and what the stakes are right now. Well, it was only a matter of time, friends. But to give you a sense of how ugly this ballot counting exercise. Remember Stalin? It's not who casts the votes, it's who counts the ballots. Going to be a lot of talk about that in the next few days. To give you a sense of just how ugly it is, yours truly, who is usually a guy who stays within the lines. I mostly play by the rules, I'd say. For the first time, I've had a tweet banned on Twitter. And I knew this was going to happen at some point. And what's amazing is that it's a tweet about what I think will happen. It is not possible to claim that this is false because it's like me saying, oh, next week, Joe Schmo is going to win his congressional election that's delayed or something, right? I mean, it's me saying what I think is going to happen. Part of this is factual, but the important part of it is what I think is going to happen. I tweeted out, notice how all the ballot counting shenanigans are happening in Democrat strongholds which is true. In states Democrats were behind in last night and desperately need to win. These are facts. Okay. In Georgia, there was a pipe that burst that stopped the ballot counting. There's graphics that show all of a sudden in Michigan over the course of the night, 200,000 votes just got added to the Biden total with not a single vote added to the Trump total. I mean, there's weird stuff. There's weird stuff happening here. And so I tweeted out, notice how all of the ballot counting shenanigans are happening in Democrat strongholds in states Democrats were behind in last night and desperately need to win. You're going to hear a lot of, wow, we just found 5,000 more Biden votes in this dumpster over the next 48 hours. First of all, that's funny. Okay. First of all, let's start with it's kind of a joke, a little bit. It's obviously meant to be exaggeration. I don't even know if I would call it that. It's definitely a joke, but it's also true. This has happened before, friends. In the Al Franken, too bad. In the Al Franken Norm Coleman Senate race, which was determined by, I think it was hundreds, maybe a few thousand votes for a Senate seat. Big deal. They suddenly were finding a lot of uncounted ballots in the trunks of cars, or they would find these ballots overwhelmingly, if not entirely, for Al Franken, the Democrat. And Republicans just sort of said, oh, we don't want to interfere in the process. How is it that my tweet, you're going to hear a lot of, wow, you're going to hear a lot of, wow, we just found 5,000 more Biden votes in this dumpster over the next 48 hours, flagged and blocked on Twitter. Twitter is a left-wing dumpster fire. And now people are going to say, Buck, just stop using it. I'm already on Parler. I'm already on Rumble. And we're going to be using those platforms more. But it's a little bit like back in the day when as a conservative, you could still go on CNN. Or even now as a conservative, you could still go on like the Bill Maher show. You gotta fight in their arenas too. You don't want to give that space up to the other side. But that's not to say that I think it's fair or it's right or what's going on there is representative of how the conversation should be. But I mean, this is just amazing. I cannot believe this. 5,000 more Biden votes in this dumpster over the next 48 hours. How can that be flagged as misleading? Are they going to send me an apology? Because here's a little prediction for you. They are going to find stashes of votes in Philadelphia, and they are going to be surprisingly pro-Biden in the makeup, right? I think that's fair. And if I'm wrong, well, then I was wrong, but it's a prediction. Twitter is straight up blocking it. Twitter is suppressing me trying to get the word out about the observations that just as a person who's paying close attention to this election is making in real time. The president of the United States last night, during his statement on this, made it very clear that he thinks it's weird. He thinks it's problematic what is going on, where it looked like he was going to win. I mean, I was on air with my friend Jesse Kelly. It looked like he was going to win, and I kept saying, no, we don't know. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking it's looking pretty good. And then all of a sudden, we're just going to stop counting ballots in these places. Not going to know for a few days. Got to see where all this heads. I'm just going to say this too. We got to have a better election counting process than what we've got right now. We've got to figure this out. This can't be. We have advanced technologically a lot, and we should be able to get this stuff so that it's just incontrovertible. It's instantaneous. It's all together. You know, they need to adjust. They need to adjust the way this whole process is done. But anyway, that's what I think is a part of the takeaway of this. But here's the president saying that it could go all the way up to the Supreme Court. I mean, he was flagged by Twitter last night. I mean, Twitter is suppressing information right now that doesn't look good for Democrats. That's what's actually happening. Play 18.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it.
Is that going to be suppressed by social media platforms too? I'm sure it will, if it's not already as I talk to you. What did I say that the actual sitting president of the United States is not saying? Oh, but I'm not allowed to say that because it's disputed information about the election? How can you dispute me saying, guys, be on the lookout for this bad thing happening? I didn't say it had happened. It is wrong. It is simply wrong to do what these tech giants are doing right now. They are trying to steal this thing for Joe Biden. Look at the donations. That's all you have to do. There was this incredible graphic that was making the rounds yesterday based on donations to Biden or Trump, showing, what the separation within certain professions, how overwhelmingly one-sided they were in their donations, and what a big portion of the donations they actually were too. It was a great visualization, and there should be no surprise here at all. Who do you think are the big Biden donors out there by professional class? All the universities, right? Universities are just overrun with leftists and people that are carrying water for the Democrat Party on the pathway, of course, to turning this country into a socialist dystopia if they can. And you also add into that psychiatrists, I always told you, super lib, very left wing, social workers, bureaucrats, government employees, lawyers. I've been telling you, the legal profession overrun by the left now, too. Not all lawyers. I got some great friends who are conservatives who are excellent lawyers, but big donations from the legal profession going to Biden, and most of them going to Biden by far. Wall Street. Democrats don't want to talk about that. Wall Street money goes to Joe Biden. A lot of the big corporation money goes to Joe Biden. I mean, effectively, the establishment, the wealthy and powerful establishment in this country, donate their money to Joe Biden. That's what actually happens. And tech, Google, Facebook, they're essentially parts of the DNC. I mean, they are working overtime to try to make sure that Donald Trump loses this election and that Joe Biden ends up winning it. And they may succeed. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, this thing is far from a done deal. But when you look at who donates to Joe Biden, I mean, to Donald Trump, who on the right, profession-wise, it's exactly what you would think. I was so happy to see. You know who overwhelmingly goes for Trump over Biden? United States Marines. You know who else is in that category? Police officers, firemen, mechanics, machinists, truck drivers, construction workers, general contractors, plumbers, people who build and make stuff, who are paid for their labor and their skills, support Donald Trump. Business owners, that's right. If you own a business, if you are a small business owner, you overwhelmingly support Donald Trump. So the people that have the most direct contact with either the market value of their labor or the connection between the success of their business and limited government regulation and taxation, they support this president. But tech oligarchs, oh no, all about Joe Biden. I mean, it's just so funny. Here I am. I've got a tweet that's blocked by one of the most powerful tech companies in the world. And not a single person in the world would be able to win an argument with me about how it is total bullcrap that they are blocking me right now. Yeah, I've got 500,000 Twitter followers. A lot of people have bigger ones. Some people have smaller ones, whatever, right? But that's a fair amount of people. And the president retweets me pretty regularly. And the word can get out about this. And people should be on the lookout they should be on the lookout for all of a sudden all Biden votes showing up in some place, or all of a sudden an improbable closing of the gap at this phase of the election. Why is that being blocked? Because liberals don't want it out there. Because Democrats don't think that people should be warned about what could be happening right now, which is that this election could really be stolen. Not Russia collusion in their crazy dreams, stolen through some Putin plot that nobody really believes happened. Not stolen like that. I mean actually stolen. I mean an election that should have already gone to Donald Trump, that through breaking of election laws on a systemic scale is going to change the final outcome. We need to be on guard against that. That is a serious, a distinct possibility. And I refuse to be, pushed into a corner and pretend because the tech oligarchs say it's disputed. Did they ever put a disputed disclaimer on Russian collusion claims that the media ran with for 3 years that were all lies? They were all lies. CNN, MSNBC, just full of sociopathic liars on those issues, okay? We all know it. All their experts, their national security people, oh, Trump works for Putin. Morons. Did they ever actually put a disclaimer on any of this? No, of course not. Of course not. Friends, it's a rigged game. And even with a rigged game, on election night, it looked like Donald Trump was going to come out on top, even with a rigged game. And now they may manage to rig the system, in effect, after the fact. It would be very sad for this country, but I sit here and I tell you right now, I'm not sure how this is going to shake out. Could very well go to court. We'll talk about it. But this process has one certainty of it is that it's going to further divide the country along deeply polarized lines, and the distrust within our system is only going to be exacerbated. It's only going to get worse.
Now, that counting could take some time this year, and that is okay. Not knowing the outcome tonight does not mean the process is broken. It does not mean the election is unfair. What's most important is that every citizen who casts a valid vote gets that vote counted, however long it takes.
So we're saying it's going to be broken by the Democrats, Stephanopoulos, you Democrat operative pretending to be a journalist, as part of the continued fraud against the American people that is unbiased news. Not knowing the outcome tonight doesn't mean that the process is broken. It means it's probably more complicated than it should be. The problem is what happens now, and the concern is over what they're going to do in the days ahead. Meanwhile, they will not in any way hold back the most outlandish claims, nor will they openly criticize people who, like the make-believe governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, are claiming on a night of just enormous voter turnout, and after 100 million people voted early. How can you have voter suppression claims being made when you have 100 million early votes cast? Never mind on election day. I mean, really? Based on what? Oh, no, you're a Democrat. You say whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Here's Stacey Abrams, place 7.
We don't have that.
So, it's crazy. She says voter suppression is real. And I sit here and I just say, based on what? But they were going to say that no matter what. So I guess if we pull that clip later, we'll play it for you. Sorry, I had a misfire on that one. I really have to tell you right now, I am worried about how this will go. Last night, there was not a lot of violence in the streets. There were some demonstrations that got a little bit testy. There were some that were problematic. But this could get really bad, because we've already had 4 years of people being brainwashed and told that Donald Trump did not legitimately win this past election. What do you think they're going to be told this time around? What do you think the mentality will be for those who feel like the country is falling into the grips of fascism? I can tell you that they're going to be highly motivated to act out in the worst possible ways if they do not get their way. Now, that doesn't mean that obviously we give an inch. You don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't negotiate with Antifa, right? That's the way it goes. But they're being told on their side, just like we are on ours, that they're on track to win. Here's Joe Biden last night, play 14.
We feel good about where we are. We really do. I'm here to tell you tonight, we believe we're on track to win this election. Yes. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it was going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying the votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted. Every ballot is counted.
Now, it's true that every legitimately cast ballot that is cast by whatever the legal deadline is and that is filled out as required by the legal parameters around it should be counted. But notice that this becomes in and of itself a partisan issue because of some of the changes that have been made, in particular during this COVID year. And that's why Pennsylvania is going to be so problematic, I think. They are going to find ways to try to count ballots that should not be counted. And then what we'll hear is, well, it doesn't matter if it's late or it doesn't matter if it's technically invalid. We want it to be valid, therefore it should be. There's going to be a big rule of law argument that comes into play here. And there's going to be a lot of people engaged in the worst kinds of demagoguery at a time when our politics have already taken on a pretty flammable, and perhaps that's the poor choice of words here, but a pretty flammable feel. All it takes is one really bad push at this point in time, and you could see massive riot. Just imagine for a moment what it looks like if in a few days' time, might even be a few weeks, depending on how all this goes, but if in a few days' time you have presidential campaigns that are both claiming that they have won based on, what their data tells them about the votes, or that they both should win, and there's some dispute about how they're counting it, and neither side will concede pending court action. I mean, who knows how this is going to go? But I do know this. We are no closer to being unified as a result of this election, despite all the Biden claims to the contrary. In fact, if anything, this is just going to harden those divisions, and the left-right divide is going to become something that is even more unescapable throughout life.